Good morning, friends, comrades, sisters, and brothers. I hope you've all had a chance to review my written report, which is included in your convention documents forwarded earlier this week, and get a sense of the work the division's been doing since our last convention. Now, the good news is I won't be reading my entire written report. We understand that Zoom fatigue is a very real thing. But this morning I will speak to the major issues since we last met and try, and I emphasize try, to summarize the last 18 months. On March 21st, 2019, upon the retirement of Sister Marley Roberts, who served CUPE Alberta Division from 2011 to 2019, I was elected president of CUPE Alberta. And I have to say that since that day, things have not gone exactly as I expected. Now, I knew there would be challenges. I knew there would be tough days. And I knew 2020 would come naturally after 2019. But friends, sisters, and brothers, I simply couldn't have imagined what this year would bring. We are in a time like no other, and the global COVID-19 pandemic has us living through health, economic, and political crises that each on their own would test us to our limits, but taken together can seem nearly insurmountable. I've learned, though, that the people who make up our union, CUPE, are strong, resilient, and just plain tough. And this strength and toughness has given me an energy and a focus I never would have thought possible. Now, there's no training manual for the job of CUPE Alberta president, but with the incredible support of CUPE Alberta's executive, our local union leaders, the National Executive Board, our unbelievably dedicated staff, and most of all, our members right across the province, I've learned a lot. I've learned you can drive from Calgary to Fort McMurray in under 7 hours, with a little bit of luck. I've learned if there's a CUPE local in a community, no matter the size, there's always going to be a friendly face. And I've learned, as I've said, that the people in our union are the very, very best. It's the honor of my life to serve as your president. This role has rewarded me in ways I never could have dreamed of. However, like I've said, you can choose your work, but you don't always get to choose the circumstances that you do that work in. On April 16th, 2019, just 26 days after you placed your trust in me as CUPE Alberta president, Jason Kenney and the UCP won the provincial election and formed a majority government. Now, a few days after that, I was spending time with my son Callum, and he said to me, "Well, I guess we can call you President Timing now." That was the first real laugh I'd had since election night. Now, friends, sisters, and brothers, this is probably the only time over the next 2 days that I'm kind of glad that we're not in an in-person convention, because I'm sure I would hear an immense amount of groaning after that story I told, because I've told that story a lot over the last year and a half. And I did so because it made me so happy. But there's something else that Callum said that day that I haven't shared with most people, and I want to share it with you now. Right after I finished laughing, and it took a little while, Callum said to me, "I watched Rachel Notchley's speech that night, though, on election night, and it was pretty great. She's not giving up, so neither can you." Rachel and Callum both have a way with words, and they always seem to find the right thing to say to keep me going. And I'm so grateful for it, because CUPE and other public sector and private sector unions in this province have been fighting for our lives, this year, quite literally, since Jason Kenney became Premier. 2020 has been so tough and so tragic that it's sometimes hard to remember that 2019 was no golden age, and we were fighting for everything we believed in as hard as we could. Well before COVID-19 upended all our lives, Jason Kenney was doing the only thing that he's actually good at: making things worse for the people he's supposed to serve. Now, he got the most votes in the 2019 election, but don't for a minute believe that he has a mandate for the radical and authoritarian agenda his government represents. During the campaign, Kenney had a very different message for Albertans than he does now. Promise number 4 of the UCP's platform during the election read, word for word, balance the budget in the first term through economic spending without cuts to frontline services. A more blatant lie has never been told in an Alberta campaign. Almost immediately upon election, he announced the layoff of 7,500 healthcare workers. He then directed his ministers to gut funds for K-12 and post-secondary education. Most school districts in this province now receive less per student funding today than they did in 2018. And this attack on children and young people continues in the midst of the greatest public health crisis in 100 years, forcing parents across Alberta to choose between sending their kids to school or protecting them from COVID-19. The families of 46,000 seniors are losing drug benefits, again, in the middle of a battle against a deadly virus. ACE recipients have had their benefits cut and are in real fear of seeing the program that gives them the bare minimum of support they need to survive being done away with completely. Doctors, who are every minute of every day caring for and treating Albertans, have had their contracts ripped up, their livelihoods jeopardized, and their integrity attacked in the vilest of ways. These cuts and attacks on frontline services prove Jason Kenney lied during the election, and nobody voted for lies. People who voted UCP took Jason Kenney at his word, and he betrayed their trust, and he has since the day he was elected. The people who voted for Jason Kenney believed him when he said he would improve the economy in Alberta. He promised he would create 55,000 new jobs with his $4.7 billion giveaway to the most profitable corporations in this province. Not one single job has been produced. Not one. From the time Kenney took office until the pandemic began in Alberta, 50,000 full-time jobs were lost. I'll say that again. 50,000 jobs lost before the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the pandemic, we have lost another 250,000 jobs in Alberta. Now, before the pandemic, companies like Husky took the pile of money created by the Kenney tax cut and said, thank you very much, and laid off even more workers. And in recent days, they have been joined by Suncor and other companies who have pocketed the cash and laid off the workers who made and continue to make them profitable. Kenney also told Albertans that they'd have more money in their pockets. Now, one of the few promises he actually kept was to repeal the Alberta carbon levy, which he called a carbon tax. He did it. And then the federal government stepped in with their own carbon levy, as he knew they would, because they told him they would. Now, having a tax replaced by another that you receive absolutely no benefit for is absolutely classic Kenney, making things worse for the people he serves. And he's made a lot of other things worse for Albertans. Income taxes are up. No one voted for that. Car insurance premiums, they're up. No one voted for that. Post-secondary tuition is going up 28% over 4 years. Nobody voted for that. School fees and bus fees are going up. You've guessed it. None of us voted for that. And drug costs for seniors are up. And again, I emphasize, in the middle of the global COVID-19 pandemic. No one voted for that. Almost everyone in Alberta is worse off than they were before Jason Kenney was elected. Now, the exception, of course, is the people who control the wealthiest corporations in this province. They're laughing all the way to the bank And knowing that, gang, it's probably a foreign bank. Now, some people who voted for the UCP have been saying, well, these policies are tough, but they'll make sure that Alberta finances are made more sound and the debt will be brought under control. That was something worth voting for. Sorry, folks. Jason Kenney doubled the Alberta's deficit in his first year in office, before the pandemic. He's projected to double it again in his second year in office. Jason Kenney ran on a platform of more jobs, lower debt, no service cuts, and lower taxes. And he has delivered the exact opposite of every one of those commitments. Jason Kenney told lies, and he doesn't deserve to be premier. Every day, more and more Albertans are realizing that Jason Kenney will only make their lives more difficult, and that the day he leaves office cannot come soon enough. Now, a perfect example of these attacks is his attack on our retirement security. And this is a perfect example of Kenney's pattern of finding something that works well and fairly for a large group of people and then trying to destroy it. Did anyone vote to have their pension plan stolen? I forced myself to look at Jason Kenney's platform during the provincial election, and I paid attention to what he said during the campaign, and I didn't hear that. But that's what he's done. Remember Bill 22? That's the bill Kenney used to fire the election commissioner who was investigating his rampant corruption during the UCP's leadership campaign. Now, that bill was actually 171 pages long, and it did a lot of different things, and all of them were terrible. One of those was to take away the independence of our pension plan, the local authorities' pension plan, which we had fought for independence for over 30 years. And he removed our ability as working people to control our retirement security and how our pension funds are managed. It also gave Jason Kenney the ability to spend up to 10% of the pensions funds on anything he wants. I'm going to repeat that. Without consultation, Jason Kenney can spend up to 10% of our pension funds on anything he likes. Now, even before they introduced that bill in the legislature, they moved closure on the debate because they're the most anti-democratic, in my opinion, government in the country. They rammed through the bill in under a couple of days. The ethics commissioner told them that they might be in conflict, but they passed the bill anyway. Nobody voted for that. No one. And that brings us to today. Jason Kenney's record battling COVID-19 is the worst in Canada. Every single good thing Alberta has done to battle COVID has happened late. It happened reluctantly, and it happened only with funding from the federal government. When Alberta was hit with COVID outbreaks at Cargill, in High River, and other meat batting plants, Brooks among them, the Minister of Agriculture got on the phone and he got on Zoom with workers and told them with his personal guarantee that it was safe for them to go to work. Shortly afterwards, almost 700 people, the vast majority of whom were our friends, sisters, and brothers in the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, got sick with COVID-19, and 2 of them unfortunately passed away. When long-term care centers like Mackenziestown, proudly represented by CUPE Local 8 in Calgary, were losing residents and staff to the virus, the Kenney government barely lifted a finger. While other provinces were rushing to give healthcare workers better wages, Alberta dragged its feet, and to this day, we still have the narrowest and lowest wage subsidies in this country. Other provinces implemented single-site staffing rules to protect residents and staff who worked in these facilities and ensure that they got the care they needed. Alberta took months to put in a shoddy plan in spite of the best efforts of our union, other unions, UNA, HSAA, and of course the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, to find a way to protect the most vulnerable in our society, but they dragged their feet, and goodness knows what that did. Within a week of the COVID-19 shutdown, the Kenney government then decided that school kids didn't need extra support, and they laid off 25,000 school staff, including thousands of our members working as educational assistants, administrative support, custodians, and tradespeople. Special needs kids were abandoned when they needed more support than ever, and they were denied access to the people who made education possible for them. It's no wonder Alberta is seeing rising infection rates and that our schools, institutions, and businesses are all in jeopardy. Kenney and the UCP are not focused on their duty to protect Albertans. They're focused on taking care of their friends and settling scores with the people who stand up and hold them to account. Now, we all know the best example of this was the law passed by Kenney this past summer, Bill 32, a shameful and unconstitutional law that attacks the free speech and free association rights of union members. Bill 32 is the most vicious attack on the labor movement since the Second World War, and Kenney's ridiculous claims that it seeks to empower workers cannot hide the blatant union busting it represents. They don't want CUPE or the Alberta Federation of Labour or the United Nurses of Alberta or the Health Sciences Association or the United Food and Commercial Workers or all the other unions in Alberta speaking out against the government and holding them to account. So they're going to try to tie us up in paperwork, fine us, maybe even jail us if we speak our minds. But friends, no authoritarian right-wing government is ever going to stop the Canadian Union of Public Employees. We will use all the resources we can muster against this attack on workers, this attack on the sick, the young, and the disabled. With the strength of all 700,000 of CUPE members standing together, we will fight in the courts. We will develop tools to ensure our local unions could abide by the regulations of this vile law until we can send the UCP packing in 2023. And we will engage, energize, and mobilize our members in ways no one, least of all Jason Kenney, has ever imagined. I'm spoiling for this fight, and I know you are as well. I also want you to know that CUPE leaders and members in every part of Canada are ready to join us and fight with us every step of the way. This afternoon, Brother Mark Hancock, CUPE's national president, will speak to convention, and he will tell us that there is no more important fight for our union at this moment and at this time. Mark is joined today by members of the National Executive Board who are unanimous in their commitment to see this fight won. And they were also unanimous in their support of our National Secretary-Treasurer, Charles Fleury, when he said, who will speak to us tomorrow, when he said, we must stand up against this attack, we must support CUPE Alberta, we must support our local unions, and we must support every CUPE member in Alberta. I want you to know that we are not ignored. We are not alone. We are a vital and absolutely valued part of the most democratic, largest, and strongest union in this country. And Jason Kenney is going to find out what happens when you fuck with CUPE. We will force this government to stand down and abandon their radical ideological agenda, and once we are done, we will work with Albertans to send them, as I've said, packing in 2023. We will elect an NDP government of the people, led by Rachel Notley. So there's a fight, and it's going to be a big fight. And this is where we all come in. CUPE gets our power from our members. Locals working together, members working together, the power of 700,000 members working together, which is stronger than any force in this country. And we will work together. Because like the song says, there's no force on earth weaker than the feeble power of one. So we are going to stand with each other like we never have before. It's not going to be easy. I know that in your local unions, you're busy with bargaining. You're filing grievances on behalf of your members, and you're doing that work that can sometimes seem overwhelming. But we are going to come together because we don't really have a choice. But when we step up and we educate our members on what we are facing, and we organize and we participate in demonstrations and protests, and we call, visit, and generally harass MLAs, they're going to hear our voice and they are going to know that we will not take no for an answer. When our locals step up and can be part of the campaigns, when they hold meetings, conference calls, Zoom meetings, educationals, and protests, we are going to let the UCP know that everyday regular Albertans are ready to tell them that we didn't vote for this, we didn't vote for the economic chaos, we didn't vote for schools that are dangerous places, and we didn't vote for a government that divides us. We want a government that brings us together so we can be strong and overcome what we face today. Now, the challenges are not going to be small, and they can feel a little bit daunting, but like I said, I'm ready. And I know you're ready because we're not going to face them alone. 40,000 strong in Alberta, 700,000 strong in Canada. The labor movement in this province has never been more united. We stand proudly with the United Nurses of Alberta, the Health Sciences Association of Alberta, the Amalgamated Transit Union, the Operating Engineers, the Iron Workers, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the United Food and Commercial Workers, and yes, my friends, the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, and all the other unions that stand with us and stand up for working people. I'll ask you today what I only ask of myself. Just do what you can. Do your part. Take care of each other. Take care of our members. Don't take any abuse from employers, and don't take 1 second of crap from this government. Before I close today, I know many of you, even in these most difficult of times, have committed so many hours to your union work. Now, this means time away from family and friends, and I want to acknowledge this sacrifice you've made. And I know you all feel these absences so very much, and I know you all take the opportunities you have to let your loved ones know how much they mean to you. Today, talking to you, I have a unique opportunity to speak to and about the people that I love. And I'm going to probably a little bit selfishly, I'm going to take it. Now, I've already talked about my son, Callum, and his very special sense of humor. But I want to say that he and his brother, my eldest son, Liam, have given me joy I can't properly express. They've always supported me and my work, even when it meant being apart. And they're growing into such kind, compassionate, strong young men that I'm in awe of it every day, and I am so very proud to be their father. And to my partner, Tiffany, I want to say that you are the most amazing person I've ever known. You're going to change the world, and I am so happy to be along for the ride. Thank you. Thank you for letting me be part of your life. I love you, Tiff. So in closing, I'll say what I've been saying throughout this speech, that together we will face these challenges. Together we will beat back these attacks. Together we will win these fights. And together we will make this world a better place.